representing Great Britain, Nicola Adams.
Attar from Saudi Arabia getting a big reception here.
Natalie Toit making her long-awaited debut here in Beijing.
First ever refugee Olympic team led out by Lokonyen. What a sight.
It's people like the Olympians and Paralympians in this series who have broken barriers, carved their own paths and demanded change that made the once unthinkable a reality. As we approach the Olympic and Paralympic Games Paris 2024, with gender parity on the field of play finally realised, it brings into focus the firsts from the second games of the modern Olympiad, also in Paris, some 124 years ago, that included female athletes for the first time. Trailblazers like Charlotte Cooper, the first female Olympic tennis champion, or Helene de Pourtalès, the first female Olympic sailing champion. Or 4 years later in St. Louis, with athletes like George Azer, the first ever amputee to compete in an Olympics. In the summer of 1904, Azer won an incredible 6 medals in one day, including 3 golds. Competing with a wooden prosthetic leg, the American took gold in the parallel bars, vault, and 25-foot rope climbing. As the first athlete to compete at the Olympic Games with a prosthetic leg, he had no idea of the legacy he would create, opening the door for those to come. Episode 5. Legacy.
When I lost my leg and I started competing, it was tough for me because it kind of felt like I didn't fit in anywhere. And it's probably a testament to a lot of people feeling like they just don't fit in.
Natalie Toit, like many people with disabilities, was, after her accident, in a world not designed for her. And with that came an understandable sense of isolation. But by pursuing her passion, she found a place in the world and built a platform for others.
The legacy, I think, is really just anything is possible if you really put your mind to it. And so hopefully, a lot of people see that. And a lot of the time, first isn't always the first gold medal. It is just finishing and just, I'm part of this campaign with amazing women who are doing amazing things. And if we look at what it does to society, and here in South Africa, we have our former president, Nelson Mandela, always said, sport has the power to change the world. And we're a very sporting nation. So sport has the power to change people's lives in ways that we can't comprehend. And I know for me, it's formed my life. I come from a family where my parents probably wouldn't have been able to afford a lot of the things. And swimming has allowed me to go out there and live a slightly different path. There's opportunity for so many firsts. I was just fortunate that it was in swimming. Part of the ladies and those that are taking part in the campaign are for very different reasons, and we all have very different stories, but all stories lead to one direction, and that is ultimately opportunity as well. Without opportunity, nothing really can be achieved. So I think the lessons that one learns is it's not always that I'm the first and I did the first, but it's that those that come after you also get to have those moments. And often the legacy isn't what you leave behind, but also what you do along your journey. You can change lives every day, wherever you can.
Nicola Adams, much like Natalie Toit before her, understands the legacy and impact her story can leave in a community. Her journey, and that of the other athletes in this series, contributes to the collective narratives that society cherishes and passes down through generations.
I think what really opened my eyes was when I actually saw that kids now learn about me in school, like I'm part of the curriculum, which blows my mind still now when I think about it. Like, wow, kids actually go to school and they learn about me at some point. It's such a nice feeling to know that I'm somebody else's Muhammad Ali, somebody's hero, somebody for someone to look up to, because when I was training, there wasn't any female fighters that had won an Olympic gold medal because, well, I was the first one. So it's nice for them now to know that there's a path laid out. They know exactly what they need to do. They don't have to fight as well the way that I did to get women's boxing through the door, to get it into the Olympics. They literally can just roll up to a gym now and start training.
In the aftermath of her gold medal at London 2012, the idea that someone should follow in her footsteps, while tantalising, was still a pipe dream.
And what do you think this Olympics has done for women's boxing?
I think it's definitely, lifted the profile. There'll be a lot more girls getting involved in boxing, which will be really nice to see, girls coming in and trying to achieve what I've done, and if not, going one better, it's really nice.
The legacy of Nicola's iconic London 2012 victory would be felt by female boxers up and down the country and inspire the new generation of female athletes to pick up the gloves and, hopefully, the gold.
I'm Emma Dolan. I'm the current British and Commonwealth professional champion. I was lucky enough to get some tickets to the London 2012 Olympics, and it was proper boxing. People were watching and thinking, those girls can fight, sort of thing. And I could feel a shift, especially after it, that people were starting to view it in a different way. It's phenomenal. I do think there was a key sort of moment there at the 2012 Olympics that's changed that, because Britain, I'd say, is probably the place to be a female boxer. This is where the biggest fights are getting made. This is where the most momentum is happening. That's why you see a lot of fights from the States coming over. We had the Olympics in 2012 in London, and then the sort of momentum carried on through that, and that is now carried through into professional game with the likes of Nicola Adams being a British fighter and Katie Taylor being Irish. So without them, you can't say it would be the same it is today. They've literally changed the game, so women like me now can box professionally and make a living out of it. So it's phenomenal. Boxing's it's a crazy cycle, I was a young girl in the gym looking up to Nicola Adams, and now I'm actually coaching the amateurs and that. So we've got a couple of girls in the gym, and they were buzzing when I won my British title. So, the cycle goes on, and I'm sure in the next 10 years, they'll probably be doing the same thing, and there'll be girls looking up to them. So, yeah, the sport's changed massively, and it's changed for the best.
While at one level, the Olympics pits countries against each other, at a deeper level, it does ask us as communities, as individuals, as humans, what is it about us that makes us common as well?
John O'Mahony, an economist from Deloitte, has led a project to understand the transformative impact of the Olympics around the world. For this Australian, the first effect goes beyond the data, as he experienced personally with one of the greatest sporting moments of all time.
There was a very famous moment at the 2000 Olympic Games in Australia when Cathy Freeman, an Aboriginal runner in Australia, famously won her event. Everybody remembers where they were, and it was one of the most symbolic moments of community solidarity that we've had in this country for a long time, either side of that, over what can sometimes be a challenging conversation for this country about reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. Another very good example of the social benefits and impacts that can come from the Olympic Games.
Researching and analysing these firsts highlights how the Olympics movement is about way more than just the podium. At the International Olympic Committee, Anne Aikman is Vice President of Delivery and Activation. Anne, like many of our firsts, fell in love with sport at a young age, but her connection to the Olympic Games goes back nearly 32 years, when at college she took a chance on an internship at the Winter Olympics Albertville, 1992. 3 decades later, Paris 2024 will be Anne's 14th Olympics, after working at both Summer and Winter Games. She's been at the cutting edge of the International Olympic Committee's drive to move things forward.
It's always about trying to do the best and trying to, whether we call them firsts or future developments. I look at, a lot of the different things that we've done at the IOC. We're going to have gender parity, men and women, for the first time in the history of the Olympic movement. We're going to have an opening ceremony that's not in a stadium for the first time as well. So we're going to have the opening ceremony, on the River Seine, which is quite unique. So I think it really gives you the sense of possibility.
The Olympic and Paralympic movement has firsts built into its DNA. Every decision, from ticketing to venues to wider societal change.
For me personally, the Olympics really represents kind of values for life. It's really about people putting their best foot forward. It's about bringing out the best in people, and people are always striving to attain that goal that's kind of unattainable, and that hard work and what it takes to get there in that sense of achievement. It's also inspirational. And I think the last one is just representation. It allows both large countries and small countries to be represented on the same stage, and everybody's on equal footing. There are very few places in the world where you can say that, where everybody is sort of, treated exactly the same, whether you come from a big country or a small country. The legacy for me of the first, it's allowing a sense of possibility, of creating an environment where people can see that if you try something, maybe it can stick. These are first, but I think these are first that are going to be long lasting.
To try and harness the power of firsts, it is vital to measure how they reverberate through society. John O'Mahony has spent 6 months focusing on just how these ripples create long-lasting change.
What we're trying to do with the first effect is look at how the Olympics can have an impact beyond the arena. We've analysed over 50 different sources of information to try to understand how the Olympics has a really big impact on our societies and on our economies. Number one, identify courageous behaviour. What can spark change? Secondly, it's to try to measure the audience, that is both in the arena and also the folks who are watching at home. Then it's to understand, well, what's the behavioural change that follows it? Is it about perceptions? Is it about participation in sport? Is it some other broader employment outcome which can follow? And then finally, it's to flow through with the broader social and economic research that we have, and then say, what does this mean for the growth of a market, or what does this mean for reduction in health costs? One example of the first effect. We, of course, have a horrendous number, 17 million refugees worldwide, and they don't always have the attention that they deserve across the developed and the developing world. And what the Olympics has done through the refugee team is help to elevate understanding and change perceptions of refugees and the role that they can play in our society. And we've tracked this from 2016 onwards and looked at the increasing participation in the refugee team, increasing search for refugees and policies around the world following it. And we've also looked at increasing safe sport access for those who've done so under the Olympic Refuge Foundation's work. Again, it's a story of firsts being created through the Olympics and having a lasting social impact around the world as well.
John's research into the first effect underscores the influence these pioneering moments can have on society. Rose Lokonyen's experience exemplifies these outcomes, as she witnessed firsthand the significant effect her role had on the refugee Olympic team, thanks to the initiatives of the IOC.
After the 2016 Olympic, they have to increase the number of the athletes. And I thank God that the International Olympic Committee and the UNHCR work together to support the team, and also all the supporters that help the refugees to achieve their dreams. I think that is the legacy that we carry.
Rosie's remarkable journey didn't end with the Olympics. Recognising her powerful story and influence, she was selected to be a UNHCR high-profile supporter. In this role, she became a voice for refugees worldwide, using her platform to meet with world leaders and advocate for displaced people.
I have to be a keynote speaker for the refugees. By traveling around the world and meeting big people, we met with Ban Ki-moon, of the Secretary of UN. We met with the Pope Francis, such a great achievement to us. And this is what we are supposed to do. Through our voice, let's support the other young refugees as well. I feel like sport brings people together. It brings peace, unite all the other peoples around the world.
Similarly, Sarah Attar's legacy left a lasting mark. Shortly after the Olympics, she was struck by a powerful symbol of her achievement.
Another super fun component of this whole thing was back in college, I think I'm just on Twitter and come across literal street art of me that's depicted in the capital of Saudi Arabia in Riyadh. So this artist painted an image from the race, talk about the outfit and what I did becoming iconic. You know, it's me from the race. You see my bib, I'm running, and that's on the side of a wall. That was incredible. And I think that really stuck out to me, knowing that street art is kind of like, it means it's a big deal or it's iconic or legendary or controversial, or, you know, there's something to street art that really stood out to me as really significant. Obviously, I knew what I did was significant, but that was one of those things that just added to that sensation and that feeling, and it really resonated as an artist. And it's really cool. I actually got to meet the artist and see the street art in person. So that was really special, getting to ask him like what inspired that. And he just, you know, he talked about how significant that moment was.
Street art is often an expression of public movements, and in Sarah's case, images like hers have become emblems of the change underway. Despite significant struggles and ongoing challenges in women's rights, these symbols reflect the spirit of a society in transition, where the call for equality and empowerment grows louder every day. A shift that Sarah experienced firsthand.
Pre-2012, you know, we would visit Saudi Arabia, and I was often training, and I would get on a treadmill here and there. And I remember specifically there was one day where I really wanted to go like outside, and my dad, we kind of had this idea to go out to like the boardwalk type of area. It's just kind of called the Corniche along the Red Sea. Go really early, it'll be really quiet. I put a ball cap on and tucked my hair up and had a baggy clothes on and kind of dressed like a guy, but I don't think it was convincing because what ended up happening, so my dad was driving alongside me, kind of just like keeping an eye on me so I could just run up and down this area a little bit. And this car full of like 20-something-year-old guys like comes up next to me yelling at me, basically saying like, what are you doing? Who are you? What do you think you're doing out here? You shouldn't be out here. And my dad just like lays on the horn behind them for a while, and they eventually drive off. I get in the car. I'm like, cool, 5-minute run. That's great. I'm done. That was pre-2012. So I had that experience. That was really significant. Just like seeing like, yeah, I can't just like go for a run, even if I think I'm dressed like a guy. Like, I don't know, that just wasn't happening. Like I said, there weren't even other runners out in general. So it was just a really unique thing to see someone do. Just after 2012, my sister and I go for a run. We wear our abayas this time, so we're kind of covered. My dad, again, is driving near us, keeping an eye on us. And what ended up happening this time is that an officer came up to my dad, you know, and I kind of was like, oh man, he's going to tell us like to leave. But the officer was checking to make sure that my dad wasn't harassing us because he was kind of like driving alongside us. So having those two experiences is pretty significant. They were in the same area and just kind of really speak to a shift. And now obviously like I've gone there more recently and I'm running along the walkways and there's people out walking and it's just a whole different world. There's like areas set up specifically for that type of thing, and it's just been cool to see that.
A steadfast presence in Sarah's journey has been her father, Attar, a dedicated sports fan, but an even more devoted father, who 12 years on still marvels at how Sarah's race resonated deeply among the people of his homeland, leaving a lasting impression on Saudi Arabian society.
That day, people were posting pictures of themselves, taking pictures of the TV, of her running, you know, and saying how this is such a historical moment for the country to have the first female athletes compete in the Olympics. So that was very touching to receive such great support. You know, I feel so proud. You know, sometimes we lose sight till you sit down and reflect on what actually happened 12 years ago, where we were at that time and where we are now. Sarah started this whole thing, and it's really hard to believe sometimes. And a lot of people, especially the officials in Saudi Arabia that's been involved in the Saudi Arabian Olympic committees, and they all recognize that. I mean, I'm still in contact with some of them, and sometime when I go to Saudi Arabia, I meet some of them, and they always say, we have a lot of female athletes now, but Sarah is different. They still, because they recognize that she's one of two that agreed to represent and compete when there was hardly anybody, and when nobody wanted to take part of it or be part of it or weren't prepared to be part of it. Her name is set as far as history is concerned, as far as what she was involved in. Everybody recognized that.
His daughter's race has been acknowledged among certain groups in Saudi Arabia as marking a significant shift in attitudes. While the progress in women's sport is still in its early stages, the advancements are notable.
There is now Saudi League for female, football. There is, all the other sports also, they're competing. There are Saudi female referees, for all kind of sports. There is no difference. Now they can do everything. I saw a video the other day online of a Saudi female MMA fighter, UFC fighter. The sky is the limit. There's nothing to stop them from doing anything. And it's not just for sports. If you follow the transformation of what's happening, in Saudi Arabia across the board, it's not just for sports. The vast majority is very supportive of what is happening and the opportunities that's been opened up, for female, whether it's in sports or in the workforce or in business. It's across the board. And I think that was a first step that still to this day, it has a lot of impact on the sporting world and for females in Saudi Arabia.
These advancements in women's sport set the stage for even more grassroots changes that Sarah got to experience directly. Little did she know the inspiration that she sparked would soon come full circle. The pair recount how this unfolded due to a chance encounter.
After the London Olympics, Sarah was competing in the Boston Marathon. And we were walking in the convention center, and I stopped to take pictures of the flags, that were hanging in the ceiling. And two young ladies came to me and said, "Are you related to Sarah?" She said, "I'm running in college because of you."
She specifically told me that she started trying to be there because of what I did in London. And then there she was, there.
And that was in 2013. Her name was Kreyman Abul-Jadail. And then she ended up running with her in Rio, as part of the Olympic team.
To know that anyone has been inspired to do that through what I've done is really special. Sometimes it just feels crazy sometimes still.
It was quite astonishing to then be part of that delegation in Rio with these same people that we met a few years ago, and we took pictures with them with the Saudi flag and all that. So yeah, that was something. That was because it came out of nowhere. We just met by chance, at the convention center, in Boston.
The legacy of these pioneering athletes extends far beyond their own personal achievements. Through their courage, determination, and groundbreaking moments, they've not only rewritten the history books, but have also inspired future generations to dream bigger and reach higher. The first effect is a testament to the impact that these trailblazers have on society. Their stories remind us that every first, every boundary pushed, every barrier broken is a step forward for all of humanity. From Nicola Adams' historic boxing victories to Sarah Attar's powerful presence on the global stage, from Rose Lokonyen's journey from refugee to Olympian, to Natalie Toit's awe-inspiring swims, these athletes show us the true power of being first. As we look to the future, let their legacies remind us that the pursuit of excellence, the drive to overcome adversity, and the desire to inspire change are what propel the world forward. This is the first effect. This is their legacy.
There's opportunity for so many firsts, and we all have very different stories.
It was just nice to be finally seen, and my sport to be finally seen and to be taken seriously.
I think that is the legacy that we carry. We are opening the pathways to other refugees as well.
All stories lead to one direction, and that is ultimately opportunity as well. Without opportunity, nothing really can be achieved.
Inspire a generation. That is really like what's happening during the Olympics, and it's pretty special.
Thank you for listening to The Green Room, Bigger Questions, a podcast from Deloitte. This podcast feed also includes over 70 regular episodes of The Green Room, where we explore the topics that matter most in business. Listen wherever you got this podcast, search The Green Room by Deloitte, or find us on YouTube at Deloitte UK.